raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear.
That I will faithfully execute.
That I will faithfully execute.
The office of President of the United States.
The office of President of the United States.
We have been given a gift by God today to usher in a new dynasty.
Now you get RFK Jr.
Don't you want a president who's going to make America healthy again?
You get Tulsi Gabbard.
Putting our country in a continual state of war.
You get Elon Musk and you get J.D. Vance.
A hell of a way to start the next 4 years.
The right-wing Avengers.
We have an army of digital soldiers.
Department of Defense under Donald Trump will achieve peace through strength.
Shut down the FBI Hoover building on day one.
Rescission of 78 Biden-era executive actions, executive orders, presidential memoranda, and others.
The golden age of America has most definitely begun.
Begin preparing the 30,000-person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay.
They're getting the dirtbags off these streets.
There's one guy who can fix this shit, and it's Donald Trump.
What's storm, Mr. President?
You'll find out.
Can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later gotta cut you down, sooner or later gotta cut you down. Go and tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down, tell him that God's gonna cut him down. Well, my goodness gracious, let me tell you the news. My head's been wet with the midnight dew. I've been down on bended knee, talking to the man from Galilee. He spoke to me in a voice so sweet, I thought I heard a shuffle of angels' feet. He called my name and my heart stood still when he said, John, go do my will. Go tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut him down, tell him that God's gonna cut him down. You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later gotta cut you down, sooner or later gotta cut you down. Well, you may throw your rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man, but as sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. You can run on for a long time, run on for a long time, run on for a long time. Sooner or later gotta cut you down, sooner or later gotta cut you down. Go tell that long-tongued liar, go and tell that midnight rider, tell the rambler, the gambler, the backbiter, tell him that God's gonna cut you down, tell him that God's gonna cut you down, tell him that God's gonna cut you down.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you're in the world. My name is Josh, and welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. We are typically live with you Monday through Friday, 7:30 p.m. Central, 8:30 p.m. Eastern, but today is a special episode. We're doing it a little bit earlier at 12:45 p.m. Central Time. We missed a few shows this last week. My son has had football games, so I apologize about that, and I just get home too late. And I was able to jump in on a few different podcasts that I got invited to, sit rep on Badlands Media, and I jumped on one with Alpha the other night, but I figured that we need a lot of time to cover some things. So tonight or today, we are going to cover the news of the last few days that we kind of missed out on. And then tonight, I'm going to be joined by Tammy Cuthbert-Garcia, and we're going to do kind of a quasi conversation to On the Fringe, and we're going to talk about all different types of topics. But that is going to be actually later tonight. my kids are going to the homecoming football game. And so I'll be gone until about probably 9:30 Central, 9:30, 10 o'clock Central. So the show will be much, much later tonight. But I just want to give everybody a heads up about that, and potentially a show tomorrow. I will let everybody know there's talk of a roundtable that a few of us will be doing, myself, Alpha, maybe Nino, and a few others. So I'll keep everybody updated on that as well. Just a lot of shows because there's a lot of things going on. And if you are new to this channel, I'm going to tell you, you heard it here first, right? We heard it here first, because what did we just see the last few days? The first indictment. The first indictment unsealed will set the path forward. Marker 9. Isn't that interesting? The first arrest. I mean, who could have guessed that the first arrest was going to be James Comey? I mean, I don't know anybody who was saying, I heard everybody say John Brennan. I heard everybody say Obama, Clinton. I never heard anybody say James Comey. It was James Comey. And that's what we've been telling you since Donald Trump took office in 2025. And the reason why we said James Comey, we're going to get into that tonight. Tara, I haven't seen Tara in a long time. So I know she works tonight, so she can't catch the show live. But awesome, Tara, good to see you in there. But we're going to get into that. James Comey, break that all down, the signals and the comms, and why our logic pointed us towards James Comey being the first arrest coming up. But first, I actually wanted to talk about Donald Trump at the UN and the escalator. Like, oh my God, he goes to the UN and the escalator doesn't work. And then the teleprompter doesn't work. And then the speakers in the back didn't work. And it's just all one big coincidence. No, guys. Symbolism will be their downfall. And we have to understand that when Donald Trump brings attention to something, thank you for your attention on this matter. When he brings attention to something, it's saying, hey, look here. Because at the heart of it, you got to remember, symbolism will be their downfall. And so let me pull this up real quick, because this is Donald Trump's post pertaining to it. Very long post. And honestly, I don't know if I think he wrote this, but we'll see. A real disgrace took place at the United Nations yesterday. Not one, not two, but three very sinister events. Sinister events. Look what he's saying there. First, the escalator going up to the main speaking floor came to a screeching halt. It stopped on a dime. It's amazing that Melania and I didn't fall forward onto the sharp edges of these steel steps face first. It was only that we were holding onto the handrail tightly, or it would have been a disaster. This was absolute sabotage. As noted a day's earlier post in the London Times that said UN workers joked about turning off an escalator. The people that did it should be arrested. Then, as I stood there before the television crowd of millions of people over the world, the most important leaders in the hall, my teleprompter didn't work. Stone cold dark. So sinister, dark. I immediately thought to myself, wow, first the escalator event, now a bad teleprompter. What kind of place is this? Then I proceeded to make a speech without a teleprompter, which kicked in about 15 minutes later. The good news is that the speech has gotten fantastic reviews. Maybe they appreciated the fact that very people could have done what I did. And third, after making the speech, I was told that the sound was completely off in the auditorium where the speech was made. That world leaders, unless they used interpreters' earpieces, couldn't hear a thing. The first person I saw at the conclusion of the speech was Melania, who was sitting right up front. I said, how did I do? She said, I couldn't hear a word you said. This wasn't a coincidence. This was triple sabotage at the UN. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. I'm sending a copy of this letter to the Secretary General and demand immediate investigation. No wonder the United Nations has been able to do what they've said, especially the emergency stop button. Secret Service is involved. Thank you for your attention to this matter. So sinister, so dark. What's going on here? Is there something else that Donald Trump is trying to tell us? Maybe there's a symbolic relationship between all of this. Maybe that we need to start paying attention specifically to dark symbolism and the messages that are being portrayed. Now, I did break it down. Of course I broke it down. Why wouldn't I? It's almost symbolic, and I'll blow this up for everybody to see. It's almost symbolic, like the globalists were telling Donald Trump, we will stop you from rising up, moving forward, dead in your tracks, escalator. Your words are nothing. We control the script. We turn it on, we turn it off, teleprompter. People will only hear what we want them to hear. We control the narrative, audio. symbolism will be their downfall. Now, what actions is Donald Trump going to take out of this? I think that something major is going to happen here. And I think it's a good time to kind of review the 40,000 foot view of what is really happening here in the world. Okay. And I've been very, very vocal about this from the get-go. You have a multi-headed hydra. Each head of that hydra is a different faction with a different ideology and a different belief system. They are continuously in a war of the roses, just infighting amongst each other for various different positions of power and control. Many of these factions, they control other factions, or they're allied with other factions. Trump and team are one of those heads in a faction. Now, for the longest time, for well over 1,000 years, a group of that faction, the Satanists, the Kabbalists, the dark occultists, the secret societies, have controlled this world, and we're driving it to a point of a one world government. This is what I call the Western New World Order. This is a commie-fascist, oligarchical controlled New World Order based upon artificial intelligence surveillance systems, a complete nanny surveillance state, to where you have programmable digital currencies that ruin and control your life. Basically, if you want to think about it, think about China. China is the model country, the model economics, the model politics, and the model military and force and use of authority that would be implemented globally for the Western global order. Okay. The other one, at least from my perspective, the one that Trump is trying to create, the Trump's team and the people that are aligned with him are trying to coup these other ones that try to take over the power base of this multi-headed hydra. And by the way, the body of the hydra, that's you and me. That's the people of this world. Their idea is something known as a multipolar world, to where there isn't one branch of mechanism of control, that there is no centralization of power and control through one nation or one faction or one ideology. Instead, it's a mixed bed where everybody works together for the common good. We can talk about that some other time. But power is not equally distributed, but is more of a meritocracy, that those countries, those nations, those factions that benefit the world and progress it forward are going to reap the benefits of doing so. Kind of the perspective that you have of what's happening in the world right now. So when we start talking about the dark occult, we start talking about symbolism. You got to go back probably to the mid 1700s when a lot of this started to begin getting arranged. Now, the reason why the mid 1700s are different points in historical context is because this is the first big collaboration that you have in a coup against these factions. This is the start of the United States of America, July 4th, 1776, to where they declared their independence from King George and the British monarchy. Now, many people look at that and they say, hey, we fought for our freedom. Well, there's a lot of things about that whole time frame that people truly don't understand. Number one is, why was James Madison 19 years old and a founding father of the United States of America at that point in time? How did he rise up the ranks? How did he get there at 19 years of age? I mean, Thomas Jefferson was only 24. These were young men. Interesting point about James Madison is that his uncle just happened to live in Scotland and be a very, very powerful and wealthy man. He sat on the board of directors of a company known as what is it? It's called the my mind went blank. It's like right there on the tip of my tongue. East India Company. Yeah, he sat on the board of directors as a thing of the East Asia Company, the East India Company. Now, interestingly enough, James Madison in 1792, when the United States formed its first treasury, got the first $10 million loan for the United States from the East India Company. Did you know that the first flag of the United States after declaration was actually the same flag as the East India Company, with the Union Jack and the 13 stripes? And when you go into colonial symbolism, you start looking at the 13 colonies, you start to see that there is a complete occult and esoteric refereology in incorporated within them. That wasn't done by coincidence or accident. As in, the colonies were set up by the sea merchants who originally left and set up colony and shop here. The original plot and idea is to separate from the Bank of England and the monarchs was well in effect prior to July 4th, 1776. It's a conversation for another day, but you have to get into the occult origins of the creation of the United States of America, which isn't necessarily pro-freedom, pro-liberty, and pro-Christianity, as many of us portray it to be. There is a darker side to this of a piracy corporation that was embedded in the opium trade, was embedded in the slave trade, that helped create and fund the original Americas because they did not want allegiance to the British monarchs. And there's a big separation away from the British monarchs between the 1780s and about the 1912, 1915, culminating in the Bolshevik Revolution, which killed the royal family of Russia, which scared the living bejesus out of the other royal family bloodlines. And so, and also you go to 1850 socialist revolutions that try to overthrow the governments, the monarchies of Europe. And who was behind all of that? And that's the interesting part. That's the dark part. That's a conversation for another day. Maybe we'll have that conversation. But what we know now is what we have, right? What we know now is what we have. And this is what I have to say. There are more good people in the world than bad. I am hopeful and I have faith that the American people wake up, that the American people see the truth behind what is happening in the world right now. That the darkness in this world is able to subside because the good and the light rises up. And see, to me, when I look at the multi-headed hydra and all of the factions, I don't care who they are. The fact that there's infighting among them gives the opportunity for you and me to rise up, for you and me to take advantage of this situation, of this instability, of this vulnerability within the system, and truly implement levels of freedom within this world. Because at the end of the day, the thing that all of them, no matter what side they are on, light or dark, the one thing that they are truly in fear of and truly afraid of is you and me, united, unified, and rising up with our actions, with our voices, with our thoughts, with our minds. That is the truth and the heart of the matter, and that's what I'm fighting for each and every day. All right, let's get into James Comey. This is interesting. September 24th. September 24th. Dan Scavino on X post Nessun Dorma. Yes, he did. He posts Marine One landing in New York City with Nessun Dorma playing in the background. Well, that's pretty darn interesting, Dan Scavino. Why are you doing that? Almost like you're symbolically trying to tell us something. And I say here, Scavino post 9:58, 21:58, video time 54 seconds, song Nessun Dorma, which means victory and unwavering faith in success. Played during the movie Some of All Fears, when the president gets revenge on the deep state. The song title means None Shall Sleep. And that was the eve prior to James Comey's indictment. Q54, for I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, plans to prosper you and not harm you, plans to give you hope and a future. Well, victory and unwavering faith and success, plans to give you hope and a future. Oh, that's interesting. 9:58, the FBI opened the case on Q today, boom statements, and now the Texas bombings coordinated the end of the comms. This was interesting because this is the same day as the Dallas shooting at the ICE facility. So we're talking about Texas bombings. We're talking about ICE facility. So there's contextual reference here. Predictable. They are scared. 4 a.m. What's the name of the song? None Shall Sleep. Think about this. Think about this comm. 9:58. They are scared. 4 a.m. Song title Nessun Dorma means none shall sleep. They will fail. We know the details. Wednesday, kill bracket. Wednesday is tomorrow. We were told all of this will kick off on September 24th. Oh, so this is Tuesday, by the way. This is Tuesday. James Comey's indictment comes on Thursday. We get word of it on Wednesday, right? We get word of it. Kill brackets Wednesday. We get word of it Wednesday. So what do I say here? Wednesday is tomorrow. We're told all of this will kick off September 24th. Trump meets with the Arab leaders tomorrow. Big day, 2158. Interestingly enough, posted September 11th, 2018. So I say September 11th, 2018. You know that reference is John Brennan and James Comey on the cue boards. Panic in D.C. I moved a relevant part. Is something big about to happen tomorrow? And then we have Peter Strzok and Lisa Page right here. So indicating that September 11th, 2018. And what did we get? We got the indictment of James Comey announced on Wednesday and then a day later. Now, what did Donald Trump do in his comps? Because that was just Scavino. Well, let's look at Donald Trump. So Donald Trump posts a video from, I believe, August. This video was an interview that he did, not in August. This is a video interview that I think he did in January or February after he came into the White House. And he calls out Barack Obama for treason, literal treason. I'm not going to listen to it because we have very limited time today. But what do we get here? Treason video calling out Obama directly. Timestamp 811. This coincided with speculation that Comey will be indicted. Bolton indicted coming soon. Hegseth calling general officers meeting. This is about to get good. And so there is post 811. How do you break up something this big? What happens if mid-senior non-corrupt patriots learn they were sold out? What happens? Who is waiting with open arms with a plan to reorg under a single entity to direct operational support by trusted patriots? Who are trusted patriots who understand intel collection? For those watching, this should scare you. It's the power you depend on to survive. Money is worthless without those in power serving you. White House military patriots, are you ready to play? Now, this was on the day of James Comey's indictment. So, or actually, he posted this the day before. So he posted it at 7:11 a.m. on the 25th. So it was before James Comey's indictment. But this is where I think this is interesting. He goes, what happens if low, mid, and senior non-corrupt patriots learn they were sold out? What happens? Well, that goes into my whole perspective that I've said before. You remember the Dan Scavino post with Trump and Sunshine? Do you remember this decode and breakdown that I brought to you? Dan Scavino reposts James Comey's August 23rd, 2024 post, and he brings the Teletubbies son with Donald Trump in it, Trump Sunshine. Now, before that, he posted a post about John Brennan. Now, the timestamps for each one of them match Q posts directly associated with those people. With John Brennan, he put a clown. With James Comey, he put Trump Sunshine. What did I tell you is that the 8647 seashells were a sign to Donald Trump from James Comey that he was ready to talk. They brought him into Washington, D.C. They probably brought him into a skiff, and he probably started singing like a bird. Now go back to the contextual meaning of how do you break up something this big? What happens if low, mid, and senior level non-corrupt patriots learn they were sold out? What happens? Who is waiting for them with open arms to plan a reorg? James Comey, I've said from the beginning, will be the first arrest. Now, what else is interesting about James Comey and the first arrest? General Michael Flynn had something to say about this specifically. I'm going to go ahead and find that and pull that up real quick because I don't have it necessarily right here. But I want you to listen to what General Flynn is going to say, because what General Flynn is going to say is almost exactly what I've been telling you. James Comey was going to be the first arrest simply because James Comey is going to cut a deal with the Trump administration. Deal with the Trump administration. He's going to get either a lesser sentence or he's going to get immunity for testifying. And then he's going to throw Obama, Brennan, and everybody else under the bus. Listen to what Flynn says here.
So Jim Comey is the first target, just like I was the first target in the Trump administration in 2016, 2017 timeframe. Jim Comey, believe me, once the evidence is shown to him and he knows it's there. He knows exactly what the problem is, and he's not going to get away with this. So Jim Comey ought to go to the tall man's shop, get measured for an orange jumpsuit, and because he's going to go to prison whether he likes it or not. Now, the only thing he can do is maybe cut a deal and lessen his sentence.
Cut a deal and lessen his sentence. There it is right there. So, and that was May, by the way. 2025 that Flynn said that. I said it way before Flynn. Just saying. But I think Flynn's known the whole time. So what other indications do we get that there's active comms going on here? Now, I don't like Pam Bondi as far as I can throw her, but she says here with the first post, no one is above the law. Today's indictment reflects the Department of Justice commitment to holding those who abuse positions of power accountable for misleading the American people. We will follow the facts in this case. She says no one is above the law. That's really, really interesting because you go to Q post 3740. December 22nd, 2019. Do you really think this can happen with no consequences? FISA equals start. Nobody is above the law, not anymore. We got other comms that directly associate with September 25th. This is interesting. September 25th, 2020. Worth remembering. Think what you know now. You go in here. It goes directly to a Comey post. It was all lies, no treason, no spying on the campaign, no tapping Trump's wires. It was just good people trying to protect America, which was an inherent lie. This is what he said very similar in his testimony of which he perjured himself. And Q posted this in 4769 on September 25th, the day of the indictment. Now, how do you correlate that? Well, you just make sure that the indictment comes on September 25th. Makes sense. Now, interesting enough, James Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards, has resigned from his U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia after the indictment of the former FBI director. Now, this is good that he goes about and resigns, but my question is why the hell was he still employed? They fired Comey's daughter. Why didn't they fire Troy Edwards? And you got to think, when Eric Siebert was in there as the attorney of the Eastern District of Virginia, how much influence did Troy Edwards have over Eric Siebert? Is that the reason why Eric Siebert wasn't bringing the indictment on James Comey and that Trump had to put Lindsey Halligan in there? Interesting, isn't it? So the newly declassified records via Director Kash Patel into the media leaks in the role of third parties. Director Comey's 2017 testimony to the Senate Judiciary Committee about leaks appear problematic. Grassley, Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in a news report that matters related to the Trump investigation and the Clinton investigation? He says, never. We're going to pull this up so we can watch him perjuring himself.
Director Comey, have you ever been an anonymous source in news reports about matters relating to the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
Never.
Question 2 on relatively related. Have you ever authorized someone else at the FBI to be an anonymous source in news reports about the Trump investigation or the Clinton investigation?
No.
Has any classified information relating to President Trump or his associates been declassified and shared with the media?
Not to my knowledge.
All lies. All lies, James Comey. Knowingly perjured himself. Now, from what I'm getting from various different sources, is that I'm told that FBI headquarters is looking into a potential indictment of John Brennan very, very, very soon, potentially as early as next week. So we could see John Brennan potentially being indicted on very similar charges next week. Now, we've been waiting for this moment. We knew that this moment was going to come. And when this moment came, a string of events are going to begin to expand outward. This is the potential right now of vulnerability for the Firestorm event and everything else that we've talked about to begin happening. We're already seeing indications of this. Now, Alpha put out a great post yesterday. I'm going to pull this up. Go ahead and read it. Approaching Ragnarok, the convergence of global flashpoints. Something is moving. The signs are undeniable. In just the last 2 weeks, we've seen a cascade of developments that on their own are extraordinary, but together form a picture of escalation that feel less like politics, more like a prelude to seismic clash. Antifa escalates Yes, they had the ICE shooting where he shot detainees and not ICE agents, which I don't know. I think he was just a bad shot, but who knows? Military postures abroad. U.S. forces are repositioning against Venezuela. And I'll talk about Venezuela here in a few minutes. Middle East power moves. Trump is meeting with Arab League right now, signaling new alliances, a sovereign alliance. But soon after, he is meeting with Netanyahu following Israel's strike on Qatar. Homeland Security alert. 6 days ago, National Counterterrorism Center issued a fresh warning about al-Qaeda threats inside the United States. And then amid all of this, you had the assassination of Charlie Kirk. His funeral, and this is interesting what Alpha says here, was designated SEER-1, the same security level as the Super Bowl, and attended by nearly the entire line of continuity of government leadership, 7 of the first 8, from president to VP down through senior cabinet officials. The vice president escorting the casket aboard Air Force 2 military pallbearers for a civilian and unprecedented density of military leadership at one place in time. The density alone created a massive national security risk, a decision that would not be made lightly. And Alpha and I have a few theories on this with Charlie Kirk and potentially why Charlie Kirk was given this Tier 1 level security escort, why they treated it very similar to a state funeral, and why all of that comes to be. And it'll make a lot more sense maybe next week on DEFCON 0 when we start to tell you that there are certain influencers who are infiltrators into this movement, and there's certain influencers who are recruited into this movement. Just keep that in mind. So, what do we got? The convergence, foreign brinkmanship, domestic unrest, funeral treated like a national security event, and now urgent military consultations. The generals coming to meet with Hegseth next week is not normal. These are not separate storylines. They are pieces of one unfolding narrative. Absolutely well said, Alpha. Now, moving to the next one, and that's just kind of a scope. Keep all that stuff in mind as we begin to continue here with all this. President Trump has came out and warned leftists who are causing violence that the right could eventually get fed up and fight back. He says the radical left is causing this. And this is with his conversation with Erdogan. He was asked by a reporter. Let's listen to the Trump right now.
Who do you hold responsible for the uptick in left-wing violence in the country?
Radical left rhetoric. The radical left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it, and they better not get them energized because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But the radical left is causing this. Radical left Democrats are causing this problem, and it gets worse. It gets worse, and it'll be a point where other people won't take it anymore, and that will not be good for the radical left. And we don't.
What is Donald Trump saying? He's saying that if they progress, this is going to ignite a civil war. He is absolutely saying that. And with that being said, this is where it starts to get, I guess, interesting. So I think what Donald Trump is doing is he's foreshadowing. He's foreshadowing that he knows that the left is going to take to the streets. He knows that there's going to be violence. They're going to try to burn the cities down. And that this time around, the right is not just going to stand around and watch. This time around, the right isn't going to just idly stand by and let their cities burn, that they're going to jump into action, and that they're going to just, the men who just want to be left alone. I think that is a clear indication, and what Trump is actually doing is he's foreshadowing that is most likely what's going to spin out of all of this. And they think that they knew this day would come, that when the first arrests begin to happen, that protests are going to begin to rise up. Because you got to remember, from the perspective of the left, we talked to the Carlin the other night, and from the perspective of the left, you have to understand that in your mind, they're delusional and they're crazy. But in their mind, they're right. They're justified. And when they're looking at Donald Trump, what they're seeing is a complete weaponization of the Department of Justice. They're seeing people that they proclaim to be their political idols being arrested. You have to understand what that does psychologically to people. That makes them crack. And this is what he's warning against, is that, hey, these people are crazy. These people are under mind control, and they are going to crack at some point. And when they do, the right is going to rise up and stop them in their tracks, or at least that's what he's signifying. Now, do I want that? Absolutely not. I don't think anybody wants that. And it's a horrible idea to even think that we could go to civil war or something like that could happen. Nobody wants that. Now, is that what he's maybe indicating? I think that that is what he's indicating. Now, with that being said, how do we ensure that this doesn't happen? Well, it's all about preparation. It's about preparation of the National Guard. It's about preparation of federal law enforcement officers, military at the southern border. It's about ensuring that sleeper cells that potentially are activated across this country do not get the gain footing, that we thwart as many of the various different potential terrorist attacks that are going to come to this country as fast as humanly possible, and that we don't get to a point to where there's igniting of the right against the left. I mean, that's really how you stop this. Now, is that a real possibility? I sure hope so. General Flynn said yesterday the left will offer up some form of distraction in the next few days. Steady, everyone. The Trump administration is doing all it can right now the right way. So yesterday, something interesting happened. We had at Grand Central Station, you got to remember, the UN has an annual meeting right now going on just blocks away from Grand Central Station. 9 p.m. exactly at Grand Central Station, the place was a complete blackout for at least 15 to 20 minutes. Now, my question is Grand Central Station, Grand Central Terminal, it's not Grand Central Station, that's the Mandela effect. Yeah, it used to be Grand Central Station when I was younger. Now it's Grand Central Terminal. That's a Mandela effect. But my question is who was traveling through there that day, important political figure, maybe foreign or not, that was taken? Why would you take out the power for 15 to 20 minutes? Said, oh, just a random blackout. Oh my God, that's not coincidence. Grand Central Terminal is a hub utilized for transit all around New York City and all around the country, specifically going between Washington, D.C. and New York City. So the question comes is, was there an operation that was ran at Grand Central Terminal yesterday? Did someone get grabbed and taken? We haven't had any reports of that, but I'm suspicious because you just don't see random blackouts. I want to give a shout out to Les Stone 69, $10 Rumble rant. Thank you, my friend. I appreciate that. Help and support everything that we do here at the Red Pill Project and Decentralized Media. He says, Snake Eyes movie has so many similarities to Charlie Kirk assassination. 100%, I agree. And I haven't watched it since like the early 2000s, but I read a few synopses on it. And my thoughts are, we live in a fucking simulation. I don't know, man. We live in a simulation. There's really nothing more to say. There's just something really weird about this world, really weird about this reality. And I think everybody is beginning to see it, that there's something very, very odd happening in the world in the sense of convergence and coincidence and things and serendipity and all this stuff. There's something really weird in this world. I don't know. Maybe we live in a simulation. My buddy Game Tech Politic yesterday said F-35s and Reaper drones join huge naval fleet patrolling the Caribbean. He starts naming all of the U.S. Navy assets, the USS Stockdale, USS John Jason Dunham, USS Gravely, Lake Erie, the Minneapolis, the Iwo Jima, the Fort Lauderdale, the San Antonio, a nuclear-class submarine. We have 45 to 4,800 Marines. Let me tell you something. During the Gulf Wars, during the War on Terror in the 2000s, at no time ever did we have that large of a naval presence in the Middle East. Take that into context, okay? Why the heck do you have such a large naval presence in the Caribbean? Now, Alpha pointed this out, and he had it on. Well, actually, shoot, I didn't want to do that. Let me see if I can find this for you. There was a video that was played, and I want to go in and see if I can find this video, because it's truly important in understanding the context of Venezuela. See, Venezuela isn't just some third world country in South America. It's very similar to Ukraine in Eastern Europe. It's an autonomous zone. It's where people in countries go to do research off the books, to develop various different weapon systems off the books, to do different things. Now, with that being said, who has had the greatest influence on Venezuela? Well, the deep state primarily. We know that this was a massive hub for human trafficking. Okay, maybe this is what the point I was looking for. Hopefully it is. I had to search. I don't remember if this is the video or not. But
so that map that you're showing is so meaningful. And I do know that there's some other things that are going to be in play here. I love the fact, and let me just throw this in because it matters. Trump's pressure on Venezuela right now, okay? Russia has a long-term, and they have sites inside of Venezuela. Venezuela is right off of our borders here, folks. So this pressure that Trump is providing against Venezuela right now matters to these negotiations. So that map that you're...
All right. So Flynn right there outlining that Russia has points of reference in Venezuela. Oh, the video is taken off. Yep. And so I'll actually pull the post up. I remember it now. This is another post right here. Flynn says, are you paying attention now? The established elite in America and globally don't want democracy in Venezuela. I do. Instead, they want access and power. The globalists can taste it. A positive springboard to better and stronger Americans' hemisphere is a democratically led Venezuela. As Americans, which do you choose? Democracy of life and dictatorship and more death. I've been very upfront about this. What you choose? America, how about you? Now, the video has been removed from a suspended account. Now, why is this important? Because the video actually outlines nukes in Venezuela, how potential global actors, Russia, China, Iran, whatnot, have stored nuclear bombs, missiles in Venezuela, intercontinental. And Venezuela is incredibly close to the United States of America and is within striking range. So why do we have a large naval presence there? Now, I think that they're not on the ground. They're not in Margarita Island. That's too easy of a target. One thing I learned about being in the Navy for 10 years and the operations that we did in the Southern Pacific, we were a fast frigate, FFG. And fast frigates were developed for ASW capabilities, anti-submarine warfare. They were sub-hunters. And a lot of the reasons why they would send frigates down to that area of operation was because we were sub-hunters. A lot of times we were streaming Nixie or had our active sonar on and we were looking for subs because the South American countries, after the Cold War ended, they bought a lot of the former Soviet diesel submarines. Now, diesel submarines are actually incredibly difficult to detect, even with modern technology, because they're so silent. Now, South America bought a ton of these diesel submarines, and a lot of them they utilized for drug and human trafficking operations. Now, I want you to think about that is if you have a Soviet submarine that is outfitted with a ballistic missile launcher, and then you have nuclear capabilities, and we know the deep state is showing this intentionality. We know that Ukraine and potentially Venezuela were utilized for the development of these nuclear weapons. Remember uranium one, remember the billions of dollars of Iran to go out there and refine their uranium. It wasn't for so Iran could have a nuclear weapon. Hillary Clinton tipped off the top of U.S. uranium from Uranium One, a Canadian company, and sent that to Russia. Russia sent that to Iran. Barack Obama sent pallets of billions of dollars over to Iran so that deep state globalists could go out there and create a nuclear weapon. Well, what happened in 2014? The place that Russia was actually had a secret nuclear program underneath Chernobyl and underneath Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, the deep state went in and couped the Ukrainian government, pulling them away from Russia and took over those facilities. If you remember, this military operation that Russia did. The special military operation originally in Ukraine was the first places that they hit were the 72 biolabs and the 2 nuclear facilities, Chernobyl and Zaporizhzhia. Why would they be hitting Chernobyl if Chernobyl is a desolate facility? Because there's World War II underground military bases there utilized for the development of various different weapon systems, including nuclear weapons. So you have to understand that the deep state was building their own arsenal of nuclear weapons, and they were skimming off the top of various different countries, sending resources to other countries that are autonomous zones for development: Ukraine, Venezuela, Iran. So all of this is interconnected to that level. So is it possible that Venezuela has nuclear capabilities? Yes, very, very possible. Is that why we have a large naval presence of anti-submarine warfare down there? Yep, absolutely 100%. And I can tell you this right now, the MQ-9B Sea Guardian Reapers are outfitted with a certain ISR platform that have anti-submarine warfare capabilities. In other words, they're sub-hunters. They are able to track and look at various different movements in the water and detect if there's a submarine 100, 200, 300 feet below or miles below. So this is the main reason why you have a large naval presence in this area, is A, to hunt them, and B, is if they launched a nuke. Now you have 8 points of capability, or you have about 6 points of capability to shoot around, detect, and to shoot this damn thing down. And also you have other parts that are coming about. You have a whole bunch of different batteries that are being set up in Puerto Rico. The U.S. is militarizing a lot of the coastline of Puerto Rico, as well as we have an increased military presence building up in Texas and in Florida, the border states, that would be the first line of defense against this type of attack. So when you begin to see all this, and then why do we have 20,000 troops at the southern border? Because you have the narco politicians in Mexico, where if any direct attack happened on Venezuela specifically, or if there's an activation of terrorist cells, you would see a lot of those cartels in military uniforms rising up and coming over that southern border. This is why we have 20,000 troops at our southern border specifically. And this is all in response to what just happened. Once the deep state starts getting arrested and they know that their people are singing like birds, this is when this gets pushed into action and things begin to happen. This is when they are going to push back. When does an injured dog attack? When it's cornered against the wall. This is where we are at right now. Now, Matt Gaetz comes out and says something interesting. He says, develop the plan, execute the plan, don't leak the plan. Then I say, trust the plan. So I think it's just interesting, little hints here and there. So Pete Hegseth this last week has ordered hundreds of U.S. military generals and admirals to gather on short notice and without a stated reason at the Marine Corps base in Virginia next week. This is at Quantico. Why is Pete Hegseth producing a massive national security level event? This 2 of them, right? So you go to Charlie Kirk's funeral memorial in Arizona. You have 7 of the 8 people in the continuity of government there. It's a SEER level 1 event, high threat level. Okay? You have that event. Now you have Pete Hegseth creating the same type of event next week in Quantico. I can't remember a time in history when all, 600 plus general officers, 01 to 04, are called for a all hands meeting. Never happened. Never will happen. So why now? We discussed some theories about this, and I want to give you one. So I think the meeting is Tuesday of next week. Tuesday next week is September 30th, the last day of September. Now, this is how it works in the military. If I'm CENTCOM, a 4-star general, and I'm over in Europe or wherever I am, and I get called to Quantico, my command authority has to be given to somebody else, right? So if all 4-star generals are gone, then that command authority is going to be sent to a military liaison, probably a colonel or whoever the Pentagon sends in replace. So I'm assuming what's going to happen. And this is how the military works. So imagine that you have various different command and control structures within the general ranks. if they're all flowing into one place and they're going to be in a classified briefing room for a period of time, that means that their command authority is going to be cut, which means that someone else has to take over for this. I believe that the Pentagon is going to send representatives to hold that command authority or centralized command authority through colonels, 06s, directly into the Pentagon under the command of one or two, probably, I would say, someone that is going to be kind of a designated survivor who's going to have single command authority. Now, think about this for a second. If you were about to run an operation globally to go into a country and potentially take out nuclear facilities, where they have the potential to launch a nuclear missile, where they have the potential to instigate retaliatory strikes and attacks almost immediately. And you knew that your government was compromised at a certain level, that your military had sleeper agents inside that were meant at that specific time to interfere with the operations, to ensure that the other side is successful. Then how do you get around all that? Exactly the way I just said. You call all of those general officers in to one place. You redistribute their command authority through colonels that you put in place that you trust, and then you relay that directly to one point in the Pentagon that you know, trust, and understand, and who understands what the plan actually is. That way, on September 30th, if a massive global event happens, like let's say the U.S. Navy takes out a nuclear submarine and starts bombing the shit out of Venezuela and cartels throughout Latin America, and they launch retaliatory strikes like a nuclear strike, now there's nobody to interfere with that, as the military can act in the official capacity and efficiency of which it was meant to act in. Huh. Interesting. So if you have potential people in your ranks that are compromised, how do you get around that command authority? Exactly what Pete Hegseth is doing. I think that is absolutely crazy. Now, I'm actually going to bring this story up right now because of the relevance to what I just said. So, a few months ago, I was talking to everybody on here, and there's a lot of things I couldn't say. There's still some things I can't say about this event. And one of my buddies is probably out there watching right now, and he's going to know exactly what I'm about to say. Consult for a few different companies. One of the companies I consult with has types of contracts that we're talking about, DOD, DHS, so forth. I was invited on a call with one of these government agencies, and I got a public briefing of an event that occurred. And the briefing was of a 0-day exploit of a hack. And if you remember, the news actually reported on this. Microsoft Azure servers were compromised. Specifically, they say by China. It wasn't China, but it basically compromised U.S. nuclear regulatory agencies' networks, U.S. nuclear arsenal, the Department of Defense, the Department of Homeland Security, the Department of Justice, and many other classified agencies we probably never heard of. And when I say compromised, I truly do mean compromised. It was almost like it was a point of leverage. Well, I keep on following this story because we just assume deep state, which is a very general and broad term when we say who was doing this. Was this their insurance policy? Because the exploit actually occurred on the same day that the DOJ sent the summary briefings to President Donald Trump of James Comey and John Brennan's original investigations being opened up to the grand jury to President Trump. Found that kind of interesting. Then, about a few weeks ago, I saw this article, which didn't really get much publicity. The mainstream media really didn't carry it, but you had a whole bunch of underground fiber optic cables, underwater fiber optic cables in the Red Sea that were actually severed. Now, the specific ones that were severed just happened to be allocated to Microsoft's Azure cloud platform. That's really interesting. And it fed directly into various points of the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Israel, so forth. Yesterday, we learned, I'm going to pull this up for you because I want you to see kind of the level of compromise and leverage that certain countries have over the United States. Microsoft terminates Israeli military's access to the technology after uncovering mass civilian surveillance system violating its terms. Now, they go in there and they talked about how it was violating the terms because it was spying on Palestinians. I'm telling you right now that everything that I just said about that hack was that country. That is the level of leverage that they've had over the Trump administration. Now, why would they be interested in this? Now, why would they be interested in the deep state and the globalists? Why would they be playing both sides? Because ultimately, it's prophetic for them. They want to bring about the greater Israel. And in order to do that, you have to bring about the world that hate you. And that's kind of what's happening right now. And I'm not anti-Semitic in any way, shape, or form. And I have to reiterate this and throw this disclaimer out there. I'm not talking about the biblical Israel. I'm not talking about the good people, the Jews around the world. I'm talking about the Netanyahu regime and the people behind him who control him, which is the philanthropic and the NGOs and the NPOs that are the integrative mechanism of the deep state of the globalist cabal that operate in the shadows. That's who's behind Netanyahu. It's just another figurehead of a larger power and authority. And they use and exploit that when they have the ability to. So think about this, is if you had that level of leverage over Donald Trump, over the DOD, to where its nuclear arsenal and capabilities were degraded to the point where they're back to analog controls and a nuclear war broke out, let's say a ballistic missile from Venezuela coming into the United States of America, that would be the end all of end all. That'd be it. So put all of that together and start to see a bigger infrastructure, a bigger setup of those different factions of the multi-headed hydra and how they play out. Soros Foundation gave $80 million to groups tied directly to extremist violence, according to new reports. Now, that's interesting because that was reported by John Solomon yesterday. Now, connect it. Guys, this is a story nobody's talking about. It's kind of breaking. Nobody's really picked up on it. I don't even know how many views this has gotten. Let me see here. This has gotten 571 views because nobody is even talking about it. Human trafficking and sex dungeon. Howard Rubin and his assistant, Jennifer Powers, have been arrested today. Ex-Wall Street trader and former Soros Fund Management portfolio manager indicted on running a Manhattan sex dungeon and trafficking women. Ties directly to Soros hedge fund, which manages the fortune behind Open Society Foundations. Civil jury already hit him with a $3.85 million liability in 2022, former associate of Jeffrey Epstein. His role at Soros Fund Management, which oversees the Soros family wealth. This is important. The wealth was eventually funneled into the Open Society Foundations. If you wanted to make a connection in the money bridging, this is your man. Interesting enough, the prosecutors alleged that Jennifer Powers helped arrange flights, transportation across state lines, and coordinate logistics to bring women, often former models, to New York to engage in sex acts. Rubin is also indicted on a federal bank fraud charge connected to misrepresentation made to a bank when arranging Powers' mortgage for a house in Texas. Sound familiar? Letitia James and other big players with their houses. Why? Because the multiple different houses as primary residence. So the key for primary residence is really interesting here. And you have to understand why they lie about the primary residence particularly. Okay? Now, if this was a rental house and I sold it, I actually have a tax obligation if I hold it for 2, 3, 5 years. It doesn't matter. It's an asset that is gets attributed to capital gains. When I claim it as a primary residence and I then therefore sell that property, after 2 years, that capital gain is tax-free. How do you sit under the tax radar? Well, exactly there. It's non-reportable money. So why were all of these high-level people buying and purchasing multiple different houses, claiming all to be their primary residence? Because the objective of it is hold it for 2 to 5 years. Then what happens is a cartel or an NGO uses dark money channels to go in there and they pay 3 to 5 to 10 times that amount of money for that house on the open market. Which companies have been buying? Blackstone. You have who else? JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs have been buying up massive amounts of real estate, residential real estate. So think people like Letitia James, right? She'll have a house. She'll rent it out for 2 to 3 years. She'll claim it as her primary property. Then the deep state will funnel money through various different channels, and they will purchase that house, which maybe she purchased for $200,000 for $1.2 million in a private deal. Since she held that house over 2 years, that's now capital gains free and she don't have to worry about taxes. She don't even have to report it on income. This is how the payoff mechanism actually works for a lot of this. So how are these human traffickers moving massive amounts of money around? Well, they would collect the money in cash and move all of that around, and then the direct payoffs would come about, money laundering, through real estate. Wow. See how we put all that together? What else do we do here? This is an interesting story. I have more information coming on this probably next week. But if you saw the footage, Iran state TV broadcasted images and documents of Israel's nuclear activities, which Israel, Tehran's sworn enemy, has never officially confirmed or denied. Now, this is interesting because it shows a few things. Number one, it shows that Israel absolutely has a nuclear program and it's highly advanced. Number two, it shows that Israel is hypocritical when they talk about Iran not being able to develop nuclear programs when Israel itself has one that's undeclared to the international community. And three, it shows that Iran has spies deep inside Israel's nuclear facilities. Understand that. And I'm going to have more on that next week. There's a lot more coming about. Now, I've talked about this, and so Donald Trump just made some statements pertaining to Turkey. He said, I'm very disappointed in Putin. He's been fighting hard. He's been fighting long and lost millions. They lost like 1 million soldiers. And with all of that heavy bombardment over the last 2 weeks, they've gained almost no land. Think about that. They gained almost no land. I'm not going to ever call anybody a paper tiger, but Russia spent millions and millions of dollars in bombs, missiles, and munitions and lives, their lives, and they've gained virtually no land. I think it's time to stop. I really do. Now, he's talking to Turkey's President Erdogan. If you know Erdogan, he's actually good friends with Vladimir Putin. And I believe that what this was a proxy communication between Putin and Trump. And right now, what you see is a positioning by Egypt, Turkey, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, and other various Arab nations that Donald Trump just met with yesterday against Israel. Now, is that a proxy mechanism that's rising up? I do believe so. I do believe it's a proxy mechanism that's rising up against Israel to basically get them to stand down in Gaza, stand down internationally, and stop this nonsense of world power play game. At least that's my perspective. I'll talk about that more probably in the next few days because I think that we have to make it to the next week. September 30th is going to be a very, very, very critical day. And I bet you on September 30th, we learn what all of this has been all about. We see all of the chain links come together and make the connection. That's my thoughts. Trump just said yesterday that he's defiant that Israel would not annex the West Bank. You got to remember, I don't think that Trump privately likes Netanyahu. I think that he understands who and what Netanyahu is, but he can't publicly come out against that. And there's perceptual optics being played by the White House and the DOJ that let's just acquiesce and say that Israel's in charge and let's cover up the Charlie Kirk assassination. Let's do all of this stuff because if we give out enough clues, if it's obvious enough, it's going to wake up enough people. If it wakes up enough people, we get them to the precipice point to where now you have the sleeping giant that has awakened to the point where even Israel's power of psyops and influence cannot rise up against that massive power of the American people. At least that's what I thought. Russia is preparing for war. Says that NATO and EU have declared war on Russia and directly participating in it. So when Donald Trump was talking to Erdogan yesterday and saying that the Russian offensive had only gained a few thousand feet of land and they've been absolutely annihilated and stopped, this is because NATO is directly involved in operations in Ukraine. Yes, I will say that again. NATO has entered the scene. No Article 5, nothing, but NATO is basically on the ground fighting with Ukraine. You heard it here first. You're going to probably hear about this. They're going to try to implement Article 5. I think Donald Trump will stand down from Article 5, will not participate, probably even leave NATO because of it. But Russia cannot fight the European nation right now. They don't have the backing, which means that if they're going to propagate and continue this war, they would need help. Iran, North Korea, China, these types of countries. Is that going to escalate? Go back to the original firestorm. Remember, I told you that we will see war breaking out in Eastern Europe, Middle East, and then we said Southeast Asia. Is that these three parts become the massive hedge to the globalist point of chaos that can be escalated. And so right now we see everything being escalated in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. So I think that this is going to kick off rather soon over the course of the next few weeks. All right. And that's about it. I mean, there's some other news, but we're going to cover that over the course of the next few days. Guys, I want to say thank you so much. Thank you so much for all the Rumble rants. Thank you so much for all the support. I do have some Substack articles coming out. It's really fucking hard to write 4 different articles at the same time and then be a dad and do shows. I've been getting invited onto a lot of shows, but I got some Substack articles coming out. One of the Substack articles that I have coming out is about the plan, about the military operation that we saw over the last 14 years. It's kind of an extension of the multi-domain battlefield, how Donald Trump is utilizing various different executive orders and interpretations of laws to do what he is about to do, basically use military only in the course of this domestic and foreign terrorist threat. Another one of the blogs that I have coming out is about Israel and a few others that I have coming out. I got a whole bunch of bodies of them written. So basically what I do is I take notes, I write those notes out, I get all the details organized, and I start writing them out. So I do have a few more that are coming about. This is going to get very, very interesting really, really fast. Next week is such a critical week because it is October 1st. Red October, the hunt for has been dropped, which means that they most likely know where the submarine is. But, you know, it's interesting. We're running into October again, and all of a sudden there's another sub threat. Crazy, isn't it? I will be back with you tonight, very late, very much later, probably around 11 p.m. Eastern time, just an FYI. So you have that in your books. It'll be with Tammy Cuthbert Garcia. We'll be talking about some conspiracies, and we will be doing I will be doing a Q&A probably for 45 minutes after, or potentially the Q&A will be tomorrow because I'm going to be doing a show tomorrow as well. So I will keep you guys updated on that. Other than that, much love, respect, God bless, take care, have a great day, and we'll see you guys next time. Good night.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad. The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, "I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!"